My crazy friend bullied my daughter and made her cry, so I took revenge by burying his car underground. I had a wonderful daughter with my wife over 4 years ago. We went to live in another state so my parents could help us raise our child in her early years. As a result, we were unable to introduce her to our friends. But when she turned 4, we decided it was time for us to continue our lives and return to our house in Florida. We also own a farmhouse, and I decided to throw a giant party where we would let our friends meet our daughter and play with her. Now, while some of my friends are like brothers to me, Martin is different. He is very carefree and lives life on the edge. But that had also given him a rude attitude and he sometimes treats others like objects for him to play. Regardless, I invited him because I didn't want to leave anyone out. When I told my daughter about the party, she was really excited to meet new people and play with them. She told me that she also wanted to introduce them to me, her favorite doll. She is very attached to that doll and treats it like her best friend, which I think is absolutely adorable. Anyway, the day of the party arrives and we're all having fun. My wife and I are drinking with some buddies and our daughter is enjoying playing with new faces. From the corner of my eye, I could see her clutching me in her arms and introducing it to everyone. I thought I was keeping a really good eye on her. But eventually, I got too engrossed in our conversation. I trusted my friends to take care of her and inform me of any problems, but I didn't take Martin into the equation. A few minutes later, I glance in my daughter's direction and notice she's missing. I immediately got up and began looking for her. It took me longer than I care to admit, mainly because the farmhouse was huge and she may have run into the woods. But eventually I did spot her kneeling near a tree, with Martin standing near her. As I came closer, I could hear Martin laughing and my daughter crying. I hugged her and asked what had happened. She was hugging her toy but it was dirty and covered in mud. Apparently, Martin had snatched it away from her and buried her underground. He was making my daughter do it back up, while saying hurry, or it'll suffocate. I was absolutely horrified. I told him to apologize but he refused, saying it was just a harmless joke and walked away. But I knew that he had done something terrible. Events like this can traumatize a child. Even now, my daughter hasn't let go of me, because she thinks it may have died underground. I knew I had to make Martin realize what he had done. While the others were still drinking and having fun, I told my daughter we're going to have some fun and took her to my truck. We filled it up with dirt and mixed some water in, turning it into heavy mud. Yup, we did exactly what you think. We went to his car and covered it all in mud. But it wasn't enough in my eyes. We kept repeating it again and again, until you couldn't see the car at all. It was effectively buried underground. After about an hour, we returned to the party with my daughter visibly happier than before. I could see that Martin was confused as to how I cheered up my daughter, but he didn't ask any questions. He had no clue what we did, and therefore the mud on the car was safely allowed to harden and toughen. When the night fell, it was finally time for everyone to leave. I told my wife and daughter to go inside while I waited outside, because I knew Martin was going to rage. And sure enough, a couple minutes later he came back shouting at me for what I had done. I stood in front of him unmoved while he kept screaming and demanding me to pay up for my crime. But I just started laughing, and told him one last thing before going inside. Don't worry Martin, it was just a harmless prank.